Hey everyone. Today we're going to be talking about sanctuary cities like our city of Seattle, a safe haven for criminals and a battleground for the innocent.
My name is Jonathan. I'm a boomer.
And my name is Michelle, and I'm a millennial. And together we're the Boomer Mill. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Boomer Mill podcast. I'm Michelle, your millennial host, and as always, here with me is my wonderful boomer husband, Jonathan. If you're joining us from your favorite podcast platform and you would like to see our faces, you can join us on Facebook, Meta, and or YouTube, as we are at the Boomer Mill on those as well. So please also like, share, and subscribe, as we are a brand new channel and we would also love your support. So if you'd like to know more about us or what we do or have an idea for the show, you can go to theboomermill.live, and that link is in the description.
Hi there, folks. Today we're diving deep into what we're seeing locally as the decriminalization of what used to be considered serious crimes in our neighborhood. We're talking about personal assaults on people in public during the day. We're curious as to what you're experiencing and if you're seeing this rise in crime in your neighborhoods as well.
So we're going to be showing you a few videos that we found in our local news networks as well as on Nextdoor, which is a platform we talked about in the last show. If you're not sure what Nextdoor is, it's an app that you can log into to find out what's going on in your neighborhood with regards to crime, deals, various happenings that aren't necessarily covered in the local news, but we're going to be covering both of those today. So let's go ahead and get started.
All the cops had everything's barricaded. I don't know, probably 10 cop cars.
An officer patrolling the Yesler Terrace neighborhood spotted a teen he recognized from a previous shooting that happened in the Safeway parking lot off John Street on August 11th. Seattle police say that shooting happened around 5 p.m. Multiple people involved and several shots fired. The suspects all fled the scene, and the victim located later that day near 12th Avenue and East 1st Street. Police say after they chased the 15-year-old to this apartment complex,
There was a sniper on top of one of the cars aimed up at one of the windows in that building, and so they obviously knew he was in there.
a family member stepped in to help and managed to get the teen to surrender before things escalated even more.
She went in the building not afraid, and the cops let her go in there, and she got the one that got him to come out.
So, as you just learned, a 15-year-old was actually arrested in a shooting. But what I found a little concerning is the fact that the police recognized him from another shooting. So what is he doing out there? What are your thoughts on that, Jonathan?
Well, the same thing. They recognized him because he's had interactions with them before, probably more than just the previous shooting, but also what happened at the previous shooting. Did they just, tell him to use a lower caliber or something? They didn't take his gun, or he has ready access to guns. So if people can commit crimes with guns in public,
underage teenagers,
underage and in public,
middle of the day,
robbing stores with a gun, that used to be what I remember being called a serious offense.
A big deal.
They recognized him. It's not something that I ever thought I would hear announced as just, they recognized him, so they called him, called his mom, called his school. No, they didn't do any of that. They just barricaded him in his apartment and waited for somebody to talk him down.
Well, and what was interesting to me was the police didn't go in and do it. They actually recruited a bystander or family member to go in and talk him down so that the situation didn't escalate. The problem I have with that is, unless that family member is a trained mental health professional that has some distance from the case, I don't see that as appropriate. What do you think about that, Jonathan?
Well, the same thing. I mean, I have
because the kid was armed. I doubt his family member was. That's where I'm coming from.
No, well, I have a background working in neighborhood affairs and with the police and with building departments and things like that. There are practices and procedures for all of these things. They drill on them. They take tests on them. They do all sorts of runs through this, because when it happens, you don't want to be, for example, running around trying to find a family member to de-escalate it. There are scenarios that they practice for this. Where was that? And this was not the first time.
No.
He was a repeat offender.
And that's what this whole show's about. So that said, let's go ahead and go on to the next case that we're going to cover that happened in our area this week.
Well, Seattle police were tipped off by an anonymous 911 caller who reported the suspect was staying just blocks away from Senator Murray's Seattle office and was posting multiple threats online, even trying to meet with her here at her office. 29-year-old Louis Bernabe now behind bars, facing charges for felony harassment and making threats to bomb or injure property after posting multiple threats on Instagram, including these posts directed at Senator Patty Murray, where he says, "I swear to God, I will have you check the undercarriage of your car every single day to ensure you don't get blown up to pieces." Bernabe also wrote, "I will condone whoever decides to put you down. Rabid creatures should be put to death."
I think it's just people getting behind their party and trying to be in a different demeanor versus trying to sit down and debate about it. It's going to a level of violence, and it's unfortunate.
Also included in court documents, a selfie the suspect allegedly took in front of Senator Murray's Seattle office, and photos of machine guns which appear to be posted on his Instagram. Court records also state the suspect spoke with Murray's staff at her Seattle office about meeting the senator.
I am really surprised. He must not have had anything on him for him, first of all, to get through security, because security is very tight here.
Yeah.
So I guess he was on a recon mission to see what it would be like to try and get into the building and get up onto the floor.
When questioned by police, the suspect said his statements were an empty threat and that he didn't even know how to make a bomb. But investigators say the threats, along with his willingness to travel from Toronto to Seattle and stay at a hotel just blocks from Murray's office, indicated the threat may be in progress and more serious.
So as you all just heard, a Canadian man came down to Washington State to try to kill our senator. Senator Patty Murray has been a senator for decades and has stood up for a lot of the rights we have as citizens. So we're praying for her and her staff, and we wish her lots of peace. I am really surprised and glad that the police did arrest him and did incarcerate him on some level so that he can't do any more damage. But I did find a few issues with this case. What did you think, Jonathan, before I get into that?
Well, starting at the top, he had made direct threats to Patty Murray from, presumably his account. And it was kind of, I know the political process and protective processes in place there. That is generally noticed. It doesn't matter if they just say, "I'm going to throw a water balloon at your car if I ever see you." That gets noticed. That's a threat. Yeah. And it can escalate. And apparently that's what happened to this guy. He started way down in there somewhere and built her up to be the monster of the age in his life. This is one senator. And she just became his focus. But how far he got is what just, if she is not safe, if the Senate is not safe.
What does that mean for the rest of us?
Yeah, the rest of us are we might as well be going by on a treadmill like the shooting gallery at the amusement park.
Well, and the problem for me was the fact that they put a $250,000 bond on him, and that's not worth her life. That's where I came from there. Additionally, how did he get the guns on the plane, especially after 9/11 in this country? I mean, have we not learned our lesson?
Yeah, there are just so many loose threads in this that it's another one of those things that just I lose a little bit more of confidence in the way that things can be handled here. If the Senate of the United States is not safe from basically a loose, mentally ill person
he got to her office,
crossing the border with weapons and walking around
outside her office, that would scare the living crud out of me.
He had to get into a secure Senate building.
Yeah.
So
and they were even surprised how he got it.
Yeah, wow, look at that. Hopefully they'll debrief this guy and pick up some tips. But the shocking thing is how far he got. He got basically one step from shooting a senator.
Tonight, a man's accused of terrorizing a group of international students in Bellevue after police say He broke into their apartment while they were sleeping and then exposed himself. Good evening and thanks for joining us for the news at 10. I'm David Rose.
And I'm Sabir Rayford. After the women woke up, he reportedly laid down on a bed and refused to leave. Fox 13's Jennifer Dowling talked to those students. Jennifer, what did these women do when they found him in their apartment?
Well, 3 of the roommates confronted him when they woke up and found him in their room. They say at one point he told them that he was homeless and had nowhere else to go. But they did not believe that claim, and they were terrified that he eventually might assault them.
We didn't know this man at all.
Adele and Seda are international students at Bellevue College.
We thought maybe he had a gun or something that might hurt us.
It was around 5:45 a.m. when Stephen Malepei allegedly got into their apartment in this complex off of Southeast 14th Place while they slept.
He acted like it's his house. Like he used our bedroom.
2 friends had been sleeping in a living room area. One of the women left to take a walk. Police believe the door failed to lock.
One of the girls, it was like first day in the U.S. She just came here to the college. It wasn't even 12 hours, so she had a jet lag.
Minutes later, the suspect was accused of sneaking into the apartment. Police say he began exposing himself. Then Seda says he shook her as she was asleep to wake her up.
I woke up because this man was waking me up and was shaking me.
Adele said she ran to the balcony with her cell phone to call police so the man couldn't hear her, while the other 2 roommates tried to convince him to leave, telling him that if he left right away, police wouldn't have to get involved. However, he refused.
We just were very scared that he might hurt us.
The young women say he started smoking in the apartment, then went to the kitchen to get a drink before returning to the living room to lay down in one of the beds.
So as you all just heard, the suspect forced his way into their Bellevue home. The man entered the apartment, and they said exposed himself. And the news article, and what the short said with one of the girls, is he was masturbating over them after he broke into their apartment. He shook them awake because apparently he wanted them to participate in the event. And when the girl woke up, she fled to her roommate's bedroom. And they both got toward the man and they demanded him to leave. They said, get out of our apartment. I can't imagine the amount of fear these young women had in confronting a man they didn't know who just opened the door to their apartment and started masturbating in front of them. And to make things worse, he was threatening him with his fists in this article. And he began raiding their kitchen, eating all of their food, drinking beverages out of their refrigerator, smoking cigarettes in the apartment. And then they eventually had to lock themselves out onto the backyard, the back patio, and call the police and wait for them to arrive. What's your take on this?
Again, how far should someone be able to get in your space before you have to call the police? Mm-hmm. He was not invited in. He's not anybody that they know. He's just some random guy that
was trying doors. And we had that in our complex.
Yeah,
we always lock the door. Even if I'm just going out and taking the garbage out, I lock the door because people will try the doors here.
We're on the first floor and you hear the door rattle. It's just like, okay, good thing we locked it,
Yeah.
But, and this is what happens when you don't lock it, or I'll tell you something, these apartment doorknobs are not the best and they're not the newest. And if you look online, you'll find a very easy way to use a penknife to get into these apartments. But no, I'm selling this to people so that they know,
I know.
The $9 lock at the Home Depot is not going to keep them out.
And your brother was a professional locksmith and things like that. So he knows a little bit about this. So if someone is able to either forcibly or you forget to lock the door and walk into your home, and there's little to no consequence for that. I mean, the police did come, but would they have, I doubt they would have followed up unless he was sleeping in one of their beds, which he was, which in my opinion tells me, I don't think this is this guy's first time. Someone who feels that comfortable just walking into someone's house and making themselves at home and doing those egregious things, that tells me this has got to be a repeat offender.
I doubt if it was his first door that night either, because if you try every door in our apartment complex, you're probably going to find one open. Mm-hmm. And if you find one open and it's the middle of the night and you go in, well, they're probably going to be asleep and they're probably going to have something in their refrigerator. Again, we have learned you have to protect yourself. I hate to say it, but we're all one by one our own best defenders, our own best protectors. We are now our own first line of defense.
Yes.
It took me a long time to get that into my head because, again, I'm a boomer. I grew up when, as a young man, I was harassed by the police because of the way I looked, not because I was going into the bedrooms of young women and masturbating over them. The police have had kind of a slip here from egregious overprotection of what they perceived as an aberration to, well, did he kill anybody? No, nobody's dead. Why are you calling us? It's the middle of the night. We have to come out for nothing. It's just getting to a very bizarre level. And I don't recall if they said that he had a prior criminal record, but my guess is he does, and certainly probably has, as I said again, probably not the first door that night, probably not the first night.
Well, this reminded me of, in 2005, I had a studio apartment, and this was in the downtown Tacoma area, I guess the old town Tacoma area. And I came home to my apartment and it had been broken into. And my bed was all messed up. Like, they put I had a cassette tape that tells you my age in my TV, and it was Clockwork Orange, and I'd never even watched that movie. There was like food everywhere. I mean, they just made themselves at home. So I called the police. And again, this is 2005, folks. So the police showed up, yay, and they immediately started interrogating me for living alone as a woman. Well, did you leave this open? Did you do this? Did you do that? And I'm looking at them going, no, I was gone for the week. It was a Christmas break, and I came back, and my place was trashed. And they said, well, was there anything of value? And I said, I was getting my master's degree. I had no money. So I said, well, they ate my food and I don't feel safe. And he goes, well, it looks like someone got a key and you just weren't being safe. And I don't know why you're living alone. And it became my problem. And so he wrote a report. It went absolutely nowhere. They didn't follow up. And that was almost 20 years ago. So this has been going on for a while. I was told as a young woman, in her 20s, don't live by yourself, get a roommate. So I went and I moved in with my boyfriend, and that turned into a domestic violence situation, which wasn't any better. But that was a big wake-up call for me 20 years ago. And I think that a lot of women that are just arriving to the United States, especially young Asian women, are also finding this out the hard way. And that's really unfortunate.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I'm a great resource to any of you who are running into this, because I know a lot of ways about self-defense and how to keep your apartment secure, what to wear when you're going out, going in, what to look for when you're out on the street, because I'm a local and I've been through this before. And it's unfortunate, but I think that the newer, immigrants, students, people that are coming to study here don't know that, and they're at extreme risk, and they need to be aware.
And I bet that key still works in that apartment in Old Town.
Probably. So we're going to show you another video that we also found very concerning. Take a look.
Well, Madison, they think right now they've got a couple of different groups committing all these crimes, but it's unclear if they're working together. Either way, they have taken notice of this late summer spree. Growing concern in South Seattle.
These suspects who appear to be robbing multiple businesses in Southwest.
Thieves hitting Delridge Way.
Both wearing masks.
Running up and mugging their targets.
Both of them have fires.
2 robberies last Sunday, barely a mile apart. First at Delridge and Brandon Street, police say someone ran up to another on the sidewalk, held him up at gunpoint, demanding their earbuds. 5 minutes later, multiple suspects hit a business down the road. It's the type of crime wave that'll put longtime community members on edge.
Hi. I'm good, how are you?
Inside Delridge Food Mart, Jay Daldal takes pride in getting to know his customers.
Okay, anything else, sir?
But he can't help but think about crime, especially now.
Thank you.
Seattle police say they're investigating at least 10 armed robberies in this area alone over the last month or so. In 2 cases, kids were targeted.
So I feel unsafe after the evening. I always think that somebody comes and, may try to rob me.
His concerns come with pretty good reason. He's been hit before.
They try to attack me, and 2 times they do the They do the robbery here. They rob me. One time with a gunpoint.
SPD isn't sure if all the recent crimes are connected, but they do believe they're looking for a few different groups of suspects.
Hi, how are you?
Despite the violence, Jay keeps working, ready to spread a little joy
Thank you,
in
man.
the neighborhood.
Thank you. Thank you.
In one of these cases, the victim was attacked right after they got off a bus. So we're talking about a really random attack.
So as you guys just heard and saw, we have had a series of several robberies and high-level crimes happen in the South Seattle area as well. And that was just one report. There are several showing that there are major consistencies with some of the attacks that we're seeing out on the streets. What was your take on that, Jonathan?
Well, my take on this is that was not the first place they hit that night. That was just the one in sequence that they hit as they're driving down that very, very busy highway. It's a gang. Somebody drives. They jump out. They hijack the store, put a gun in the guy's face, take whatever he's got, boom, back in the car, go to the next one. Again, I'm a little surprised that there was a police response. Possibly they might have been following the reports of the crimes as they came into the police department. They're just going down the same street talking to the same people. Yep, they put a gun in my face. Yep, I gave them the money. Yep, they had this kind of car.
Yeah, but they keep doing it and they haven't been arrested.
Yeah. So they have the information about the car. They have the license plate number. They know what they look like. They know the area that they're targeting. And
at least in our area, definitely.
Yeah.
Like some of the, especially the cars going through buildings, they're able to identify some of the people.
Yeah. And it just seems like there is it's reporting, it's not investigating. I can understand a random guy puts a gun in somebody's face on the street, boom, nobody's ever seen him, nobody ever sees him again.
But this stinks of organized crime.
It's organized, it's repetitive, and it's a business.
Mm-hmm.
The only difference is they probably don't pay taxes like the guy in the convenience store does. Mm-hmm. But it's a business if they're doing it like this. Oh, the police know him. They've seen him before. We hear this over and over and over again. If only there was something that could be done, something the police could do to stop this.
Well, and I feel terrible for that convenience store owner. Now, we live on the east side and we talk to a lot of different vendors and business owners out here, and they don't feel safe either. But to have have a gun put in your face and to still stay open and be that sweet, I mean, what a gem. That neighborhood is really lucky to have someone that's not only that amazing, but that brave. So I really hope his store doesn't close down, that he's okay.
Yeah. The other thing that occurred to me is long ago and far away, I was actually wasn't like a convenience store, but I was a clerk in the store, and I stood by the cash register and I checked people out and put the stuff in the bag.
It's a health food store?
Yeah. And so I know what it's like to sort of be not trapped, but you're in a spot because that's your job. You stand there, you bag stuff, you ring it up, and you take people's money, you give them change, you interact with them. So I know what that's like. You're standing there 6, 8, 10 hours a day, and you do feel like you can't move. That's part of it. In his case, he might have actually not been able to move because he probably had a little security around him. But the folks that are doing this know that.
Yes.
They know that you feel like, oh, I'm here, I can't go anywhere. And especially if you're in a locked cage.
Mm-hmm.
It's good that he was in a locked cage. So
it's like a transit.
Yeah.
But he had to put that up to protect himself.
Yeah.
Now, when I had a jewelry store, we were cased more than once. And I actually called a jewelry store that was down the road from me, downtown. And I told them, look, I was just cased. He might be coming your way. And they were able to at least spot them as they came in. And they were only able to get into one of the display cases. They smashed it, grabbed, and they were able to because I called them and let them know they were coming. These guys aren't subtle. They come in, that they're there. The only reason they didn't rob me was because I claimed I didn't have any gold or silver, and I was armed. So that's a little different. I also grew up in military and police environments like Jonathan. So guns aren't for everybody, but if you're highly trained and you can use one to defend yourself, it's a possible option. Anything else, Jonathan? You have to add to this?
Well, the thing
the string of these.
Just be aware if you're innocent. I don't want to characterize anybody's business, but I know when I go into one of these stores, I look before I go in.
Mm-hmm.
I make sure Okay, who's in there? Okay, there's the guy taking the money. There's somebody buying eggs. There's somebody buying beer. That's probably not somebody that's going to rob the store if they're walking around picking up stuff. Could be, but it's more unlikely. It's the person that rushes in, puts a gun in the guy's face, says, give me your money, I'll kill you. Boom, money out the door. So take a look before you go in. It couldn't hurt.
Yeah, and check the parking lot too, because that seems to be a
running car in the parking lot.
Yeah. So we're going to show you another video that we also found very concerning. Take a look.
This is wrong, and this shouldn't be happening. I am just in shock.
By a rash of targeted crimes.
People are scared, that I can assure you, and I don't want them to be scared. I want them to feel free.
That's Jaskaran Singh, a Bellevue resident considered by many as an East Indian community leader on the east side.
They're worried. They're talking to each other. They can't wear and walk freely. My wife and my mom, they said, we are always watching out. If car is stopping, they have to be careful. And my kids playing on the streets, I'm worried about them.
According to Redmond police, there have been 14 thefts in the city. The thieves use different distractions to steal jewelry from their victims, sometimes using force. RPD believes they're part of a larger organized crime group, specifically targeting older Asian Indian community members.
Elderly couples are scared, and they don't go out.
Bellevue police are investigating very similar crimes but aren't connecting them at this point, and are not saying these crimes are specifically targeting the Asian community. Within an hour time span on Tuesday, 3 women approached their victims at 3 different locations.
One of the victims was actually forcibly held down. 2 suspects held the victim, so it allowed the 3rd suspect to yank the jewelry from it.
Bellevue police are also still investigating 2 other similar crimes in June. No arrests have been made. For the time being, police recommend traveling in groups, not approaching any unknown vehicles, using caution and distance when talking with a stranger, and lastly, staying vigilant and aware of your surroundings.
They should come out. They should report. That's the thing we need.
Reporting.
So as you all just learned, there is in fact a major crime being done against Southeast Asian women and the elderly in our community. I talked about this a little bit on Nextdoor. They're saying, oh no, it's not necessarily targeting Southeast Asians. But like I said on Nextdoor, yes, they're definitely targeting Southeast Asians. They're actually opening the doors. And if you're not Asian, they're asking you where your Asian neighbors are. So I love Southeast Asians. I grew up in the military, so I had a lot of experience with the culture. And so is Jonathan. So we're going to try to give you guys some tips to help you guys keep safe out here, because we're both locals. We both lived here for over 30 years. When I go out, I do not wear my hair down. I pull it up and I put it in a cap. Okay. I wear sunglasses so they can't see my eyes. Okay. Another thing I do is I wear layers. So that, it's great for the weather, but I can also put anything valuable in the bottom layer so that if they try to attack me, it's going to be very difficult to get to any type of monetary anything. I do not leave the house with my wallet or my phone unless I absolutely have to, because guys on motorcycles and mopeds on the trails out here will take your cell phone right off you and just speed down the trail. I always lock the door, even when I'm taking out the garbage. I have to be extremely vigilant, especially as a female. I carry gel spray. I have a tactical device that on hand in case they get too close. And we are also licensed and armed. So when we go out, we're protected. And we encourage you to find ways in which you're comfortable to protect yourself, because we really are worried very much about you. You're an amazing culture. We love having you here, and we hate to see you treated like this, especially your mothers and your fathers. It's just absolutely terrible. So is there anything you'd like to add, Jonathan, regarding this incident?
Well, again, this is a case of specialization. The criminals have noticed, so have we, that there's an increasing population from Southeast Asia. They have traditional clothing, traditional ways. It's great. It brings new life into the culture. The restaurants and the stores and things are just, they're vibrant, they're lively, they're great. We love having the
Indian community,
the influence in the community.
Yeah.
But if you're not just enjoying other cultures, if you're more criminally inclined, the clothing that's being worn traditionally is not designed for security.
It puts a bullseye on your back.
Yeah, it tells people who you are. It tells people traditionally what you might have. And it also makes it difficult for you to get away if they grab your loose clothing and pull you back. And I don't want to sound disrespectful. This is not meant to be disrespectful of anyone's traditions, but
you need to be safe.
You need to be careful. When you're going to and coming from your car, when you're getting out of your car, lock your doors when you're in your car. That would probably prevent a lot of this.
When it comes to your hair, don't give them something to grab.
Yeah. Wear a scarf and make sure the scarf is tucked in. But the idea that there's now specialization in the crime, group is frightening.
It is.
Because we're all part of a group.
Yes.
Like older white guys tend to do this, carry this, go here, and, dress and act a certain way. We could all be targeted based on our commonality in our
But you're not,
groups.
because most of you are armed and lived here long enough to know that and see them coming. That's why they're going after people who are new, like those poor young women that had the guy break into their apartment. They're brand new. They're going after our incoming immigrants that are here to make our communities better. So
again, it's specialization, and I find that frightening. In criminals, I find it frightening. In medical procedures, that's okay. But the fact that they're targeting older Southeast Asians, and particularly a group within that, is scary.
it really is. And it tells you how cowardly they are, too. Another thing that kind of struck me as a little more disturbing in this case is it's women attacking women, which is a little new for me because most of the cases that I've been looking at, there's a certain demographic, and it's not normally women. So I just find it interesting that you can't even just look at the gender or look at the person and really figure out whether or not, or suss out whether or not they're safe or not. So just everyone's suspect. Try to do your best when going out, and if you're comfortable, try to wear clothing in a way that is going to protect you. That's the best advice I can give you as a local who's been here for over 30 years.
And again, lock your doors.
Oh, God, yes.
Lock your car doors, lock
all
your
doors.
Homes. Yeah, it's just a thing. Just lock
Before getting out of the car, look around. Don't just get out without looking, because there could be someone waiting for you or someone who could have followed you.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we're going to go on to our next story, and this is something that is on the minds of pretty much everyone in our area, the greater Seattle area and beyond, and it is the mental illness problem that we're experiencing in our county. And actually all of the counties. So we're going to go ahead and show you some of the reporting on that this week. And we'd love to hear your thoughts on this as well. Let's take a look.
Create staff out of thin air. What can we do to make things work better?
This is a public safety crisis.
Rebecca Vasquez focuses on these cases for the King County Prosecutor's Office. She says the state's problem is this: poor planning and chronic underfunding, creating the worst chaos she's seen.
Our whole community is impacted by not taking care of people with serious behavioral health needs.
Records obtained by King 5 show that in King County, because of the long wait times, judges have dismissed charges including burglary, felony harassment, indecent exposure, hate crimes, and assault with a deadly weapon.
How would you characterize what you're seeing now?
Immense crisis. And the system is years past its breaking point.
DSHS officials say the ultimate goal is to prevent people with mental illness from ever entering the criminal justice system in the first place, and they're working hard to figure that out.
Do you feel like there's hope to turn this around?
I would not be doing this job if I didn't think there was hope. We are thinking innovatively. What can we do differently?
Rory and Sarah were my friends.
Back in rural Idaho, a grief-stricken community has a message for leadership in the state of Washington.
Whatever they can do to make it so this doesn't happen again to another small community.
So as you just saw, the mental health problem in the King County area and beyond is so bad that it is moving out to other states. They are releasing mentally ill people who should be kept in asylums, how would you put it, hospitals, and monitored. They're putting them out on the streets because there aren't beds for them. And they're reoffending, not just in this area, but in other states. And they're killing families. That was what that last sigil was for.
Yeah, the problem has been for a long time that the prisons are full. They really are full. You can overload the prisons to a certain point, and then the prisons become their own problem, and that's harder to get a hold of.
And Jonathan has worked with Pierce County prosecutors and other people in law enforcement. I mean, his name's on the police building, so he has a little bit of chops in this area.
I have a background in hearing about this and trying to do something about it. And the problem is that you don't. I've said this a lot, and people will argue with me and agree with me, but this is my opinion. Incarceration is the last option.
Yes.
You need to have treatment, because most of these folks that are doing these crimes are doing it because they're mentally ill, and they either don't understand that it's wrong, they don't understand what they're doing, they do understand, and it's wrong, and that's not being treated, but it's not as random as it might seem. There are a lot of folks out there that need help, and they're not getting it. Their family can't provide it for them because they're dangerous. The state, the community can't provide it for them because there's not a slot for them. This is how I heard it referred to when I was briefly involved in a group that tried to help the folks that needed help.
And they have to come from a family with money and resources to pay for all of these services in addition to these other things. Because in the 1980s, I don't know if you guys know this, the Reagan administration emptied out all of the asylums into the streets. And Western State was one of those facilities. They literally emptied Western State into downtown Tacoma and said, be free.
They put all the people, I actually witnessed this.
And this happened over COVID too in several sanctuary cities as well.
I was downtown Tacoma. I had an office down there. And one day I noticed, wow, there's a bunch of folks down here I'd never seen before. And they seem like they need help. They need help. And I looked around and I went in and called someone that I knew at the city and said, what's going on down on Pacific Avenue? And they said, you didn't see it on TV? And I said, not yet. They said, well, they closed Western State Hospital. And that's it. That's the statement. They closed Western State Hospital. Hundreds and hundreds of severely mentally ill people. And they just
dangerously mentally ill. These are people that are they're known for high level crimes that would put most people on death row.
That's why they're in the mental hospital.
Yes.
This is not a hospital in the sense that we're going to put something on it and it's going to heal.
Yeah.
This was an incarceration of a gentler nature.
Yes.
And that was gone. Yes. So now they're down in the heart of a very brutal city, no resources, no place to sleep, no place to eat.
I think they gave them $20, right?
Oh yeah. So lunch.
Yeah.
And
these are mentally ill people.
What are they supposed to do? And that is still going on. That same area of Tacoma is still catastrophically overrun with people that are mentally ill. It has ebbed and flowed over the years, but it's notorious. I know this again because my office was in the building where they dropped them off. And it's heart-wrenching to see the folks. It's literally heart-wrenching to see the folks out on the street looking at you like, can you do anything for me? And you can't.
No.
You can't take these folks home, shelter them, medicate them, give them the treatment that they need. We're not equipped to do that. That's why we give them millions and millions of dollars to the state to do this.
Yeah.
And the state said, nah, not anymore.
And when I had a jewelry store, one of my locations was in downtown Tacoma, and it was near a facility called the Winthrop, and they had a big Section 8 housing set up there. And every now and then I would have people come into my store and lock themselves in the bathroom to medicate themselves, for lack of a better term, or people would come in and just start showering. Or they would come in, and if I had any food or coffee or something like that out, they would just walk out with the coffee pot or with the food, stuff like that. And there was nothing I could do about it. But at the same time, it's like you look at them and they're just severely mentally ill walking around. Just, I'm going to eat this. I'm going to do that. I'm just going to go lock myself in this bathroom. A lot of the business owners downtown were like, we don't know what to do. The police don't really have a process for this. And so I was friends with a couple of gals who were social workers, and they let me know what their work was like. They got 1/8 of the pay that they used to about 10, 20 years ago. an eighth, meaning they got down, docked an eighth. So like, let's say you're a full-time like teacher or social worker. An eighth of the pay means that's like an hour a day, guys. And I asked what their caseload was. It was almost 1,000 people, and they don't know where they are or where they're living because they've been released from the facilities that they were in. I go, so what do you guys do? And they're like, we basically just file the paperwork and say we don't know where they are because there's no process otherwise. And I'm like, so they're paying you an hour a day to handle almost 1,000 people that are severely mentally ill. Am I getting this right? And they're like, oh yeah. And then we deal with, women that are, taking care of children that maybe have meth labs in the homes. We do family in-home visits. We do that kind of stuff, but we're only paid an eighth. And so we had to take on other work like at Walmart and other facilities in addition to working as a social worker with a master's degree because that was required so that they could pay off their student loans. And that's just a whole other thing. So these are people like me who got their master's degrees and working with the public only to have their job completely annihilated in 2008. And that's what a lot of millennials are dealing with. Millennial teachers, millennial social workers. We're all working contracts, guys. We don't have that beautiful, 8 to 5, 9 to 5 or whatever it used to be back for the boomers job. And because they're not hiring us at full capacity, we're not able to go out there and do the work that we need to do in order to keep things like this from happening. What is your take on this, hon?
Well, yeah, the money that has always been allocated for these services is still there.
Yeah.
The service agencies that are supposed to administrate the caregivers are still there.
Mm-hmm.
Some of those folks were laid off too. I will say
a lot of layoffs. Yeah.
There were a lot of layoffs up and down, but the program, the budget, all those things is still there.
The money's not going to where it needs to be.
Yeah, they're going into publications, they're going into statistical reporting, they're going into tracking, how bad is it? Okay, it's this bad this year, it's that bad that year. Mm-hmm. So we don't need a book that says, yeah, we're in trouble. What we need is
action
to help start solving the trouble. I know that they're not going to hit every person every year, but start with one and work your way up. Sitting in an office 200 miles away, actually it's more like 80, sitting in an office miles and miles away, doing a report that's going to get filed, nobody's going to read it, except lunatics like us, is not worth your time either. You should not be paid for that job. I'm going to make a lot of enemies here at the state. You should be doing something to help in the position for which you were hired. Statistical information is not enough because those statistics are based on actions from other people. And those actions generally are not benevolent. And they're not even directly malevolent. They're people, they're mentally ill or developmental or whatever you want to call it. They are unable to deal with the society. Folks, I'll be honest. I admit to trying to be normal. I can barely deal with this society on a day-to-day basis because it's crazy. I've been here for a minute, and the last minute has been crazy compared to what has happened in the first 40 years of my life. So something needs to be done. This is affecting all of us. If I have a point to make, it's affecting all of us, not just the poor people out on the street, not the workers in the state. It's affecting every single one of us, and not in a good way.
Yeah. And so I looked a little bit more into this, guys, and there are so many inconsistencies within the program. They're facing $350 million in fines because they're putting these people in prisons unjustly instead of putting them in the mental facilities and the hospitals that they need to get help. So I looked this up, and it's a sanction of $250 per day per inmate. So that would be $75,000 per inmate that's been saved up so far. They could take that money and at least develop some kind of facility for each person, because $75,000 is a lot. And the end of this article does go into a facility that they opened, but it is a drop in the ocean when it comes to the problem that we're dealing with. So DSHS, they should be paying the bill, but now the PRISM system is picking up the bill, and the staff is not prepared to handle this level of mental illness. They're not trained. So if you incarcerate people, they will reoffend if you put them back out on the streets. And that's what they're doing because they don't have a place to put them. And Western State says our beds are full, our hands are tied, there's nothing that we can do. So this is an ongoing problem. It needs to be dealt with on, in my opinion, not just a state level, but a federal level, because a lot of the inmates that I looked up are not even from Washington State. They're sent here, which is why we have such a prolific issue with not enough beds. But what do you see as being the solution to this problem? Because back in the 80s, Jonathan worked with the mentally ill in a legal sense.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's sort of the balloon here has gotten bigger and bigger and bigger.
Mm-hmm.
So first thing that has to happen is that some of the stress has to be taken off the system.
Mm.
The problem is, how do you do that? How do you let the air slowly out of a balloon that's too full to begin with? You can't. The solution is not what's been done before, which is fill up a couple of buses and push people downtown. Just drop them off with a $50 bill and say, okay.
That's what's happening with immigration.
Yeah.
It's like these people are completely unequipped. They don't even speak English, and they're just dumping them like you would garbage. It's horrifying.
Yeah. So dumping doesn't work.
You don't dump people.
And and it doesn't work. If it did, it would have worked the first time these poor souls were dumped. So what needs to happen is a complete, I know this sounds crazy, a complete revamp of the rehabilitation system. We need to find a place that works. I don't care if it's Tacoma, Seattle, Poughkeepsie, or France. Find a place that has a system that works and reproduce that. That's how you build success. Find success and copy it. It has to be out there because other countries have a problem, but they don't have a atomic level crisis at this time. We have a crisis.
We do.
This many people.
And that's from the actual professional's mouth. That's not something we're saying. That's coming from DHHS. That's coming from the people that are running these programs.
And knowing them, they're probably trying to de-escalate that a little bit by saying, oh, it's just a crisis instead of we're all done, So it needs to be given attention, because if you don't give it attention, it will give you attention ultimately. That's the way these things work.
Wow. So we want to thank all of you for joining us today. We are here to bridge the generational gap, one conversation at a time, and we would love to hear your feedback. Please subscribe, as we do have a lot more listeners than we have subscribers because we're brand new. And you can contact us on our website. It's www.theboomermill.live. You can email us. It's theboomermill@gmail.com. And we would just love to hear from you guys. If you have an idea for the next show, we're always open to ideas for episodes. But, that said, is there anything else you want to close off with, Jonathan?
I'll say the same thing. We all have to be participants in this because we are all affected by it. You may not have somebody open your car door today and, put a gun in your face. But,
hopefully not.
But those folks are out there and they don't want to be out there. I've talked to a lot of folks. I worked in a sheltered workshop, it was called, and I talked to hundreds of people. They don't want to be forgotten. They want to be.
They need help.
They need help. They need community. And it's surprising how little goodwill will do for someone in a situation like that.
Okay, so that said, we want to thank you all for joining us, and please subscribe, and we will see you in 2 weeks. Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.